UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
I'm your host, Dr. Vijay Murthy. I'm really so happy today because I'm going to be talking about men's body care at loss. And I have with me Beverley Higham, an acclaimed aromatherapist who has developed cosmetics, body products for women, for men, even for babies. Welcome to my show, Beverley.
Hello, thank you.
You know, men get neglected when it comes to body care and cosmetics. It's such an awkward topic. But actually, this is something that we see every day. Men struggling with how to look after their body, how to look after their skin, because we get judged as well.
That's true, and a lot of money has been spent on the development and the education of women's health and women's body care. So, yes, it's time for you men.
So, are you happy to help poor men like me who get neglected, Beverley, to give me some tips and other fellow men as to how we can actually look beautiful, handsome, whatever?
Yeah, most definitely. I'm here with lots of tips.
Okay, I tell you,
yeah.
I'm going to actually start with my story. Every day morning, I wake up and there's one thing I really hate and love is shaving. When I don't shave, I feel ugly. But the act of shaving every day, scraping your skin, the rashes, the pigmentation, the problems with shaving is something that I feel, why do I have to do this? That's when I feel, okay, women are lucky. What's your suggestion, Beverley, to deal with this everyday chore of shaving?
Well, I know how you feel because my partner feels exactly the same and he doesn't look forward to shaving. But what he tends to do to make it an experience that's maybe less harsh on his skin is he tends to do it after he's been to the gym and after he's been in the sauna. So try and get your shaving routine fitting in with your other general lifestyle health patterns, such as after the sauna. But there has been more interest, and it's more fashionable to have beards nowadays. So a lot of men are grown beards, and beards have become very fashionable.
But you know what? I tried that a couple of years ago. It's really so expensive, Beverley, to be maintaining good beard, to go to the barber and to get the right kind of shaping. But one thing I really liked, what you suggested, is it's best not to get up, go to the bathroom and start shaving. It's important to prepare the skin where there's more moisturizing, there's more oil, so that actually shaving becomes easier, or it's actually gentle on the skin.
Yes, that's true, because when you go for your Turkish shave, or as you mentioned, go into the barbers, that's what they tend to do. They preheat and prepare the skin before the shave. They soften the bristles and so on. So maybe let's think, what are you using, Vijay, as your shaving cream?
The regular ones that you get on the high street shops or supermarkets. I just get one of those lathery, foamy gel, and I just apply it on my face and neck and start shaving.
Okay, so often they are full of alcohol and fragrance and perfume. So as well as your skin being highly exfoliated and having its top layer shaved off along with the hair, you are probably irritating the skin more than you would need to.
Is there an option? Is there an alternative?
I think we need to find one. I mean, there are lots of organic products available, and lots of the natural soap companies that listeners could find online will have organic and more gentle alternatives than the brands that you're suggesting.
Can you suggest some, Beverley?
Well, I was going to suggest a recipe that maybe you could try yourself. You could make your own shaving soap.
I would love to.
Right. Well, when I remember my father, as a child, I used to remember watching my father shave, and he'd have this mug with a kind of soap in it and a shaving brush and foam it up, and it's quite fascinating.
I know.
Style to watch. So buying some natural handmade soap, which you can buy quite cheaply. When I say handmade natural soap, it's usually made from organic oils such as olive oil and vegetable glycerine. Mm-hmm. But if your listeners bought a bar of soap and grated the bar of soap,
yes,
put it in a bain-marie, so in a metal bowl over a pan of warm water, mm-hmm. and to that bar of soap add a tablespoon of olive oil or aloe vera gel, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And then a couple of tablespoons of white clay or Moroccan lava clay, which again can be bought very cheaply.
Where do you buy the Moroccan lava clay or white clay?
You can buy them online. I tend to buy a lot of my white clays from France because they have a much better, much superior type of clay in France. But you can buy it from most of the handmade, homemade, artisan shops online, and you'll be surprised how cheap it can be and how much fun it can be creating your own products.
I think, one of the things I find is, we have lovely markets, particularly in the UK, in London, and there are lots of stalls where they make natural handmade soaps. And the thing I liked about what you said, Beverley, is actually to grate the soap, because that's probably one thing that I didn't know. But it makes sense. By grating the soap, you can actually, by mixing it with oil, you can actually apply it, more thoroughly so that it gets in contact with the skin better.
Yes, you could do that, but if you actually melt them all down and stir them up and pour them into a mug, you can make yourself a traditional shaving soap that you can use with a natural bristle brush.
Yes.
And so, although you're not looking forward to shaving, you'll probably have more pride in it because you created this yourself.
Yes.
And you'll be satisfied that you're using natural ingredients that your skin's going to appreciate more than those alternatives from the superstores.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And when you say brush, what kind of brush should I be looking? This sounds really ridiculous. Me being a man, asking a woman, what kind of brush should I look for shaving?
Well, because we're trying to get people to be more conscious consumers, always try and look for a natural bristle brush. But with the fashion being beards and shaving, and the Turkish shave is back in fashion, most of the big department stores now have an array of different shaving brushes and shaving devices. So, when you're out on a Saturday afternoon wandering through the shops, go into a department store and have a look what they've got on offer, and maybe getting yourself some nice tools to use along with your shaving soap that you've created makes it a much more superior ritual that you may look forward to doing.
Okay, so Beverley, besides wasting my time in the morning doing all this, and you say I might feel proud about doing it because I've done it myself, what difference does it make to the skin?
Well, when you're using natural ingredients, the skin's more receptive to them, especially if they're plant-derived, because plants and man have evolved on this planet together, so they recognise each other. And our skin is really designed to prevent chemical invasion. So when we put chemicals on our skin naturally wants to tell us that it's not nice. So it becomes irritated, it becomes red. You know, the skin's the largest organ of the body and it's there to protect us. But when we're using natural ingredients, our skin's much more receptive, it's much happier.
Okay, so is it too late for me to start using a natural shaving soap and the ritual that you have just described?
No, it's never too late. There's a saying, it's never too late to be what you might have been. So there's always time to start again.
And I hope that's just not a philosophical statement, but I can see a difference in my skin. Because one of the problems that I'm sure other men also have is because of repeated shaving, actually the texture of the skin in that area changes. You know, you can always see it on photographs. Like there's this border and the whole area of skin which is slightly greenish or darker because of hyperpigmentation. The tone changes. Then sometimes there can be scarring, there can be rashes. How do you deal with those problems, you know, when there's this pigmentation issues because of excessive shaving?
Yes, so what's happened here is after shaving, if you go out straight away directly into sunlight, then the skin does pigment because the skin's more sensitive, so it's going to be more sensitive to sunlight. So it's important directly after shaving not to have sun exposure or exposure to the elements.
Makes so much sense. Nobody had ever told me this.
Well, again, very simplistic, but that's what happens. If you shave or remove hair, it's the same with threading and other methods of hair removal. If you go directly into sunlight straight after, that's usually the cause of the pigmentation.
You know what? So, we have this sex education as a compulsory component in our schools for boys and girls. I wish they also had shaving education so that we could save our skin.
That's right. Skincare it should really be on the curriculum, especially with teenagers' skins changing through hormonal influences. And as you say, young boys becoming men, it would be ideal to be added on the curriculum.
Yes, you know, the next thing that I think I'm finding it difficult is the choice of deodorant. You know, when I speak to herbalists, they say, no, you don't need to use any deodorant. Honestly, I don't want to really smell like them. I'm not being judgmental, but the truth is, you know, when you don't use a deodorant, you know you haven't used a deodorant. Is there a natural alternative for that?
Right, well, I think it's quite right what you're saying. Now, I must admit my partner, Mohammed, has never ever worn deodorant as long as I've known him, and I've never known him to have body odour. And I think if you already have a very clean lifestyle and a good diet, such as the herbalists who have given you this advice, then they don't tend to sweat a lot of toxins that are going to attract bacteria, and therefore they are more pleasanter in their aroma.
Okay, so share some of the secrets of maintaining a clean body as a man.
Clean body, yeah. I think that's it really. Drinking lots of water, having a healthy diet, using chemical-free products as much as possible, so the body doesn't have such a hard job to detoxify itself, and then we're perspiring more to get rid of these toxins. And we've also already mentioned using the sauna and steam room. I know my partner, he tends to have quite a healthy lifestyle and uses these methods regularly. I just think that once we put more toxins into our body's got to sweat more to get rid of them, and then that's when we tend to get more of the body odour and the aromas.
Yes.
And then when we choose to use natural deodorants, often we don't feel that they have the lasting effects that the more chemical varieties do, but you've got to persevere. Even something as simple as coconut oil with some baking soda, you can make it into a block, so it's almost like a roll-on deodorant.
Yes,
and there's lots of recipes on the internet, but very simple methods. Even I've got one here where 3 tablespoons of coconut oil with 3 tablespoons of baking soda and a small amount of shea butter.
Yeah.
2 tablespoons of arrowroot powder compact into an old deodorant tub.
Yes.
And that's supposed to be very efficient.
I'm actually thinking when you're talking about it, Beverly, is actually, can't I just put it in this ice maker and then just freeze it?
That sounds a brilliant idea.
And then I can also distribute it to all my fellow men. This is your
right.
natural deodorant.
Yeah, I mean, making a mould like that sounds wonderful, and then it's more simplistic to get out at the gym. If you put it in a small box, you can just take it out, rub it under the armpit, and try that. And just, a good hygiene in the morning, and a good cleansing routine of your body, a healthy diet, drinking lots of water, and you will, if you bear with it, you will feel the difference.
Okay, listeners, especially women, ladies, girls, you actually can initiate your partners, your friends, your siblings, men, by actually preparing a natural deodorant. You heard the recipe. It is very simple. Coconut oil, shea butter, and baking soda, and there was one more ingredient. What was that?
Yes, some arrowroot powder.
Arrowroot powder. You just kind of melt coconuts.
Melt them all down, yes. Just compact them all together in an old deodorant stick, or as you said, something like an ice cube.
Yeah.
container.
And then you can... But, I know the major problem with deodorants for men and women is really the nasty chemicals that are used for making deodorants, which has a very negative impact on hormones. We know the connection between breast cancer and deodorants, and what would that be? Why are commercially available chemical-based deodorants not good?
They're not good because we're directing them straight into an area where we've got a gathering of our lymph nodes, and our body is absorbing them. And as everyone will be aware, the main thing in deodorants is aluminium.
Yes.
And again, because consumers are wanting more natural products, some of the top companies are now changing and taking the aluminium out of their deodorants. So I was quite pleased to see that one of the big companies has done that, and it actually on the front of the canister it says 0% aluminium.
Yeah. I know, if you're a woman, you're going to be more explorative and you like to find out what it is. But, it's not that I want to advertise any company, but I know as a man, if something doesn't jump at me, I'm not going to look at it. So do you mind actually mentioning the names of some of these companies? Because, I think, that would be a great help if you do that.
Yes, I mean, I was encouraged to see this is a company, Soft and Gentle.
Uh-huh.
One of the main producers of deodorant through my lifetime, anyway, so far. And when I saw this, I was so encouraged because in the past I've had to buy my deodorants when I've been in France because over there, such as the range Vichy, they tend to produce some wonderful deodorants without all the harmful ingredients in. But this one by Soft and Gentle also has no alcohol, because alcohol can be very drying for the skin, especially in the armpit area.
Yeah.
But also some people who are coming off alcohol may be on medication, which means that they can't be in contact with alcohol because it causes skin reactions. So that was a positive thing. And also I know, again, my partner likes to use things that are alcohol-free, that are halal. So it was quite encouraging to see that products are now changing. The consumer is at last being listened to.
Are there any options, in supermarkets or generally where we go and try and buy body products? Are there any options at all?
Yes, there are. What you've got to do is just find the time to explore your local supermarket. I think the supermarket here in the UK, such as Tesco, even have their own health food stores nowadays in the large supermarkets.
Yes.
And organic is a big industry now. It's consumers have wanted it, and it's here. And so there are lots of brands that are producing more safer deodorants. Anyway, let's say that.
Yes.
Safer deodorants. But the key thing that your listeners need to look for is the 0% aluminium.
That's right. Just remind my listeners about the dangers of aluminium.
Well, again, like in the last interview, we talked about parabens causing breast cancer. Well, aluminium has similar properties in that instance. And also aluminium can upset our endocrine systems and get into our bodies and again be like a mutagen, changing the chemistry of our bodies. Mm-hmm. So we want to avoid it as much as possible.
And aluminium can cause allergies.
It can, and I think you mentioned earlier, it can also affect our mental state with Alzheimer's and other conditions that we're quite fearful of nowadays, which are on the increase.
That's right. Sure. It's really neurotoxic. It is toxic to the nervous system. And, like as men, we love using deodorants. Each time we change our shirt or top, we just go and use some deodorant. So it's something that we do so repeatedly. So it's important to use safe, natural deodorant.
Most definitely, because as you say, repeated application is just going to build up the toxicity within our bodies.
Yeah, so mainly, we need to be looking at products that are aluminium-free, alcohol-free, and paraben-free.
Paraben-free.
Yeah, paraben is a very common preservative that's used in all body products and cosmetics, which has very nasty properties that's going to affect our health in the long run.
That's right. That's right. And if you can have a deodorant-free day, maybe if you're staying at home for the day and you're not going to go out anywhere where you're going to be worried about body odour, then why not have a day where you're just free from all cosmetic products other than the ones you've made yourself,
I know. Yeah, that makes so much sense because I think, we do fasting, but I think, nowadays we need to really look at cosmetic fasting, electronic fasting, phone fasting, Facebook fasting, all of these things for health.
Yes, I agree. Yes, that's wonderful.
Beverley, something that I've seen that men usually suffer from, not suffer from really, they don't suffer from, but what happens is the dry skin, and particularly dry skin around the feet. And I don't think many men really are aware of the importance of exfoliation and moisturizing. Do you like to talk about it?
Yes, most definitely. I agree that, yes, men do tend to suffer with dry skin around the heels in particular. Mm-hmm. So using pumice stone regularly would also be a good way of exfoliating that area, and applying a good foot cream or a nice penetrating oil such as avocado oil, obviously taking care not to slip once it's applied, before they put the socks on again after they've showered, and maybe using again this ritual of going to the gym and sauning and showering, and then using the pumice stone on the rough skin on the heels and under the pads of the foot, sole of the foot, applying some avocado oil, massaging it in. It's deeply penetrating. Yeah. So by putting the sock on straight after, it will help to maintain absorption, allow absorption of the oil. But men also need to exfoliate their bodies regularly because with the male species tending to be more hairy than the female, they can get ingrowing hairs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would suggest, again, using something as simple as sea salt, a handful of sea salt in the shower.
Yes.
And exfoliating the arms, the legs, the body. If the skin tends to be dry and flaky, and they would know this because the skin would tend to be a little bit itchy as well if it's dry, they could add some olive oil to the salt and use that as an invigorating scrub.
Yes. What's the health implications of ingrown hair?
Well, ingrowing hairs can become infected. In fact, even without the hair ingrowing, men can suffer from what's called folliculitis, and it's inflammation of the hair follicle.
Yes, the root of the hair.
Yes, that's right.
And then it can form into a pimple. Then there can be pus formation, and that becomes the breeding ground for infection, and then that results in a complete imbalance in the oils in the skin, and it can be the beginning of a skin condition.
Yes, that's correct. So keeping all the hair follicles clear and all the skin well exfoliated will help prevent that, because an ingrowing hair could have real terrible effects, especially if an abscess developed on the body, which could be quite detrimental.
Yeah.
And wearing tight-fitting clothing or uniforms, or where a belt has been tight, tends to cause more pressure on the hair follicle in certain areas.
Yeah.
So I would definitely recommend at least once or twice a week to use the salt method of exfoliation.
As a man, what I experience is, and I'm sure it's the case with many other men, unless you're genetically very gifted, is actually as we lose more hair on our scalp, we tend to grow more hair on our body.
Yes.
I know, this might be a weird question, but is there a way how we can reduce the amount of body hair?
Reduce the amount of body hair. Now, that's an interesting question. You might have noticed, I don't know whether it's happened to you, but men tend to have less body hair where they've worn their socks. The body kind of evolves to adapt to the way you treat it. So men who wear ankle socks a lot tend to have no hair around their ankles.
Mm-hmm.
But having hair removed is a fashion trend. We already talked about the rise in the amount of people having beards, but lots of men do come to the spa and have their body hair removed using a waxing method.
Yeah, which is so painful, and also it can lead to lots of rashes and other problems.
Yes, that's right. I'm a great believer. If hair grows there, you should leave it.
Oh, really?
Hair's there for a reason, isn't it?
But a lot of men, they actually get laser treated to reduce hair growth. Do you have any comments?
Yes, I mean, this seems at the moment quite a safe way. It's not as painful as waxing, and eventually, after several treatments with the laser, it does diminish totally, because the laser picks up on the pigment in the hair, so it actually only works on dark hair. At this moment in time, there is no laser that works on white hair, but it does seem to be quite effective.
What's the function of body hair?
Well, it's there to insulate us. I also think it's there to protect us. Mm-hmm. It's also there to raise our awareness of, you say when you're frightened, the hairs stand up on the back of your neck.
Yes.
So it has many functions, but one of the main one is for protection and for buffering the skin.
Yeah.
So you talked about losing hair on the head and feeling as if the hair grows more in other places.
Yeah, that's right. One of the common problems, Beverley, is that hair loss, male type baldness, besides aging, can also be a result of extreme dieting. And you know that today more men are interested in fitness and being very body conscious. So obviously they go through these extreme diets like high protein, high fat, low carb, and then they start to lose hair, and then that becomes chronic. So what's your suggestion, for thinning of hair in men? Of course, I would say as a doctor that actually you should have a very balanced nutrition, nutritionally dense, not caloric rich, but nutritionally dense diet, and don't get into extreme dieting if you don't want to really lose hair very quickly on the scalp. But besides that, do you have any suggestions in terms of scalp care, what men can do?
Yes, most definitely. I think once or twice a week, a good scalp massage with a hair tonic that can be easily made by themselves or their girlfriends, partners. So let me give you this recipe.
Yes, please.
So to 100 mils, I'm going to recommend jojoba oil, which is actually a liquid wax.
How do you say that? Because, there are two different ways of pronouncing this oil, isn't there?
Yeah, so I call it jojoba, but it's spelled Jojoba, jojoba.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like jalapeno. The way you pronounce, way jalapeno is spelled is with J, but you pronounce it as jalapeno. So
That's exactly right. Exactly right. But this oil, as I say, it's a liquid wax, but it can be found in most health shops nowadays. And its texture and consistency is so similar to the hair's natural oil sebum. It almost mimics the sebum. So it's a really good base and a very good at conditioning the hair.
Mm-hmm.
So to 100 ml of jojoba oil, I would add 10 drops of rosemary essential oil.
Mm-hmm.
That has been known to stimulate hair growth for many, many years. It's in lots of hair tonics. And the only people that should not use rosemary are those who suffer from extreme high blood pressure or epilepsy.
Is it really bad even by topical application of rosemary?
Well, to be perfectly honest, a small amount won't do anyone any harm, but when people hear a little bit of information, they sometimes take it to extremes, and that's why I mention it, really.
Okay, so to be on the side of caution. It's not a contraindication.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, just on the side of caution. So 10 drops of rosemary, 10 drops of lavender, and 5 drops of basil essential oil to the 100 ml of jojoba, and put it in a bottle, shake it up, and then maybe use for one application I would use about 10 ml, which is almost like a dessert spoon.
Mm-hmm.
And what the gentleman would do would pour it into his hand, rub his hands together and massage it into the scalp.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe once or twice a week before bed. Obviously your hair is going to be oily, so put a towel over the pillowcase.
Yeah.
And then in the morning, apply a mild shampoo to the hair before applying water. And lather it into the oil to help emulsify the oil, and then just wash the hair as normal.
Yeah. It makes good sense, because what happens with aging with men is that the skin on the scalp becomes so tight that it starts to loosen the hair follicle, which then results in hair fall. So by increasing the circulation and using antibacterial, antifungals like what you have suggested with rosemary and lavender and other essential oils, it is a way actually to counteract that.
Yes, most definitely.
You mentioned a gentle shampoo that then again begs for the question, okay, so lathering shampoo would mean SL as sodium lauryl sulfate?
That's right, yes. The sodium lauryl sulfate is used as a foaming agent to give a really luxurious lather, although I believe that chemical was formulated originally to strip out oil from engines. So it's a very harmful chemical for our scalps, especially if we are concerned about hair loss.
So what kind of shampoo should men be looking at?
If they look at mild organic sodium lauryl sulfate free shampoo, and one that I would not recommend buying any of the shampoos that say they remove dandruff if you are worried about thinning hair.
Mm-hmm.
Because the chemicals in those formulations actually destroy the hair follicle even more. So avoid shampoos that are labelled for removing dandruff.
Yeah, and also, a word of advice to men, because I know I tend to do that. We are all creatures of habit. Like, we don't really like to think too much when it comes to body care. So every day we tend to shampoo, which is actually not good, because then we are losing all the oil, natural oil in the hair. So it's important to understand the nature of our scalp. If it is too oily, it's okay to shampoo it frequently, but if it is dry, it's better not to shampoo it regularly. Would you agree, Beverley?
Most definitely, I would agree with that point. And the more that they use this hair oil, and also if that sounds too complicated, they could just use coconut oil once or twice a week. They would actually find that their scalp would not become excessively greasy. The scalp would find its own balance, so there would be less need to wash the hair.
Beverley, one of my hairdressers, who is an expert, when I mentioned to him that actually I've started using coconut oil and my hair feels better, it's helping less graying and it's much more healthy, then my hairdresser said, "Oh, that's all nonsense, it's just grease."
Not at all. I mean, the coconut would sustain life, It's like I mentioned earlier, that natural molecules, our body just accepts them, just absorbs them, because it recognises them. The genetic pattern, is similar to ours. We've evolved together. In fact, plants were here before we were. So I would say, no, you're definitely doing something that is very, very good for your hair.
Because I remember when I was growing up as a child in India, before going to school, if you didn't apply coconut oil to your scalp and you went to the school, you would actually be punished for not being very proper.
Not being groomed.
Yes, almost like application of coconut oil was considered a sign of being civilized.
Yes. Well, again, coming from the culture, all these cultural ingredients that come from our past are what we really need to build back into our lifestyles.
And then, and then television came into our lives, and television had this fantastic ads with sexy-looking men who kind of used all these foaming lather producing shampoos, and then people forgot about coconut oil.
Exactly. And what we are encouraged to do, which again is totally false, is to wash our natural body odour off totally. And there is the thought that we spend so much time washing off our natural scent and replacing it with the latest fragrance that hits the media, that when we find our partner, or we go on a date, we're actually not sharing body chemistry, and that's why relationships, once they get to really smell what we smell like, just don't work.
I know. Once you no longer can get hold of that brand, the relationship ends, because you're no longer attracted, because the person was attracted to the perfume.
And not you.
It makes sense, because, evolution-wise, actually the strongest memory that we have is for smells. That's for when you walk into a town, or when you're on a holiday, you smell a particular crisp smell in the air. It kind of brings back all the great memories. So it's important for men to remember that do not abuse your body, or I would say do not rape your body with all these chemical perfumes, but find and preserve your own body odor, which is the most attractive aphrodisiac.
Exactly, that's exactly right.
And, Beverley, what I'd like to ask you is about face mask. Because, women tend to have this knowledge of doing facials. But as men, what can we do?
Well, there's a beautiful, the Moroccan lava clay is a beautifully mildly exfoliating clay that's really good, especially if you suffer from psoriasis, eczema, if you've got highly sensitive skin. It's a kind of clay that is it's sort of a reddy brown mineral-based clay that's been around for thousands and thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, some cultures call it soap clay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a brown clay that you can buy easily off the internet or from your health store. And you just add water with it,
mm-hmm.
make it to a paste and apply it to your face and scalp, I'm going to suggest.
Mm-hmm.
It's marvellous for the hair. As a man, when you're applying it to your face, you need to avoid the lips, the nose and the eyes, of course, because the skin's much thinner around the eyes.
Yes.
But I'm going to suggest that you take it right down the neck to the top of the clavicle, so you're really having a really good total skincare, because the neck ages just as much as the face, so you need to look after the neck area. And you'll find this very calming, soothing. It will change the texture of the skin.
Mm-hmm. How often and how long should one leave it?
Right, well, once you put the clay on, you'll find it tighten quite quickly. So as it dries, you'll be the best judge of when to wash it off. Usually it's about 8 to 10 minutes maximum. But the actual drying effect is helping you to rest all the facial muscles, because it kind of immobilizes. As you mentioned, men aren't used to face masks, but us women are. So it immobilizes the features.
Mm-hmm.
And so your face can have a nice rest. It draws out impurities while recharging the cells with a kind of ion exchange. And it just improves the skin texture. You've really got to try it to appreciate what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to talk lastly about a very sensitive topic, but I'm sure every man would have experienced it at least once in their life, like every human being would have experienced cold at some stage in their life, is really the medical condition called tinea cruris, which is the itch in the groin.
Yes.
And, it's a terrible thing when men suffer from it, and they find it very they find it very difficult to talk about it. So, would you have any suggestion for that?
Most definitely, this is one of my areas of expertise. Lots of obviously males in my family have had this similar problem that you mentioned, and it's very difficult to get rid of without...
Did they come and talk to you, or did you notice them?
They're a bit of both, really. A bit of both. I am the type of woman that men do talk to about these things.
Oh, that's good.
And being a therapist, especially treating men and women, men do tend to become very conversational with the therapist and do tend to tell the therapist more than they would tell, probably even more than they tell the wives in some instances about
yeah, that's true, yeah.
Their bodies. But yes, this is the kind of fungal condition where the skin becomes very red, very itchy around the groin area is something that needs to be addressed. And one of the best treatments for this from a natural perspective is a wonderful calendula oil. Again, calendula officinalis, take from marigolds.
Mm-hmm.
Or even making, we've talked in the past about the breast balm for women.
Yes.
And so having a balm that's useful around the groin area,
mm-hmm.
I tried to come up with a title for it, and my daughter mentioned that you need to call it Fantastical Balm.
Wow, that sounds great. Fantastical balm.
Yes, it's topical for that area, and at least it more or less insinuates what its a reason for creation would be. So
and the name actually is very helpful, because then it tells men where to apply it. Fantastical balm.
Exactly. And having something that they can apply each evening because as you start to relax, the itch tends to be worse at those times. Or first thing in the morning, often you do see men with their hands in their pockets because obviously they've got a bit of an itch. So it is quite a common occurrence, I think probably more common than we would realise. So a blend of calendula, cocoa butter and olive oil with maybe some tea tree and lavender, as we've already mentioned, a little bit of chamomile, and massaged into the area frequently would help to get rid of the itch, but also help to hydrate the skin and remove some of the discomfort and eventually get rid of the condition.
That's fabulous, Beverley.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
I hope this information has been useful for you, especially if you are looking at conception or you have somebody that you may want to share this information with them. And thank you so much for listening to AYU-Well. I'll be talking to you again next week on another topic for UK Health Radio on AYU-Well. Thank you.